Have you ever met someone at the grocery line or on a quiet walk and felt, for a second, like you'd known them forever? Maybe it was a smile that softened a heavy day. Maybe it was a hard lesson that stung, but woke you up. I don't think people show up by accident. Sometimes they land in our path like little postcards from life, saying, "Keep going. Turn here." Tonight, let's sit together for a while and talk about the people who find us right when we need them, the ones who lift us, the ones who test us, and the ones who stay. If this kind of gentle, honest talk feels like home to you, you can subscribe now so you don't miss the next late-night whisper. No pressure, just a quiet corner you can come back to. Okay, breathe in. Let's begin. There's a simple way I've learned to look at it. Life keeps a soft calendar we can't see. Appointments we never booked still happen. A stranger holds a door and you feel seen. An old friend calls with the exact sentence you needed. A new co-worker rattles you in a way that hurts, and yet later you admit it shook something loose. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe life knows when to send a nudge and when to send a hand. And it's okay if we don't catch the meaning right away. Some meetings only make sense after the season changes. I used to think my story was a straight road, like the state highway outside town. Flat, long, no surprises. Then I grew up. The road bent. I missed exits. I learned that people are the road signs. The kind ones say, "Rest here." The tough ones shout, "Wrong way." And a rare few feel like mile markers that quietly tell you, you're getting closer. When I look back, the timing was almost funny. A teacher who wouldn't let me quit, a neighbor who taught me how to be still, a breakup that broke me just enough to let the light in. None of that felt random. It felt arranged by a wiser part of life I can't explain. I don't want to get fancy with words here. No big theories. Just a simple picture. Imagine your life as a small backyard after rain. People are like seeds the wind brings over the fence. Some sprout into quick little wildflowers that color one summer, and then they're gone. Some take root deep and become shade you sit under for years. And some fall on hard ground and never grow at all. And that's okay, too. Not every seed is meant to stay. Not every season is meant to last. Let me tell you about Martha. She's 71, lives on the edge of town, a little blue house with a porch swing that squeaks. We met at a diner. 2 stools left, 2 mugs of coffee, 2 people who didn't plan to talk. She told me about her husband passing the year before and how mornings felt too loud. "I talked to the kettle," she laughed, "so the silence doesn't win." We never traded phone numbers. But every few weeks I'd see her again. Same stool, same time, like life penciled us in. One day she said, "I think my loneliness taught me how to notice people again." That sentence sat in me like a candle. I still don't know why we met when we did. Maybe to remind me to slow down. Maybe to remind her she wasn't invisible. Either way, we both walked out lighter. Not every meeting is soft, though. Sometimes a person arrives like sandpaper. They rub your rough edges, and let's be honest, it's not fun. But after a while, you touch the place they scraped and think, smoother. Years ago, I worked with a guy who criticized everything I did. Every draft, every plan, nothing was good enough. I took it home like a bruise. One night I stood at the sink, hands in soapy water, and asked myself, is he the problem, or is there something I can learn? I didn't excuse his tone, but I heard the echo under it. Make it clearer. Be bolder. Own your work. I stepped up, cleaned the weak spots, drew better lines. A month later, he moved on. I didn't miss him, but I did thank the lesson. Maybe that's how the tougher visitors work. They don't stay, but they leave you stronger. And then there are the ones who appear for a moment and catch you mid-fall. Think of the airport stranger. You've had one of those days, eyes stinging, gate changed for the third time, and a person across from you says, "Rough day?" You laugh, tell the short version, and somehow it's enough. You board lighter. Will you see them again? Probably not. Did it matter? Yes, it mattered because it reminded you the world still has warm corners. That's all some meetings need to do. A quiet truth I've learned. You don't have to fix everyone you meet. I know you're kind. You see pain, and your hands reach out on their own. Mine do too. But maybe it's okay to wait to be asked. Maybe helping before someone is ready can tangle the thread. A friend once tried to save me from a mistake I needed to make. It came from love, but it made me feel small, like I couldn't try, stumble, learn. When the time was right, I asked for help, and her help landed softly. Timing is everything. If you're a helper by nature, please hear this. You're allowed to pause to say, "I'm here when you want me." That's not cold. That's respect. And it's okay. There's another side, too. Sometimes you need help and nobody hears it. You drop hints. You say, "I'm fine," but your eyes say otherwise. If that's you tonight, may I offer a small step? Tell one person one simple sentence. "I'm tired and I could use a little company." Or, "I don't need advice, just a listener." People who care will show up. People who don't were never yours to begin with. That's not cruel. That's clarity. And clarity is kindness. We should talk about boundaries, gently. Being kind doesn't mean being available 24/7. You're not a public park. You're a home. Homes have doors. Doors can open wide. Doors can also close. Maybe you grew up believing good people never say no. It's okay to retire that rule. Good people rest. Good people sleep. Good people turn their phone face down and watch the sunset in peace. If someone calls that selfish, that's their story, not yours. A soft boundary is still a boundary. You can love people and still protect your quiet. Here's something tender. Forgiveness. It's not a fancy word. It's a small release. Think of your anger like a hot coal you keep in your fist because you're waiting for a chance to throw it. Meanwhile, your hand burns. I once carried an old hurt like that, a promise broken, a trust cracked. I kept writing speeches in my head for a conversation that would never happen. One morning, I woke up tired of hearing my own anger. I said out loud, "I forgive you," and it felt strange, like I was giving away my last match. But the room got brighter, not darker. I didn't forget. I didn't say it was okay. I just set down the coal. Maybe that's all forgiveness is. Letting go so you can pick up your life again. You might be wondering, how do I know who is a lesson and who is a keeper? I don't always know, but here are soft signs I trust. Keepers make you feel calm in your own skin. You breathe easier around them. Your jokes feel funnier. Your silence feels safe. Lessons often come with friction. You feel yourself clench, or you keep explaining your worth to them like it's a bill you owe. With keepers, you don't perform. You arrive. With lessons, you learn, and then maybe you leave. Both have value. Both are allowed. There's a quiet practice that helps. At the end of the week, sit with a cup of tea and ask, who lifted me a little? Who dimmed me a little? Write 2 names. You don't have to confront anyone. Just notice. If the same names repeat, you'll know where to water and where to stop pouring. It's okay to stop pouring. Gardens need balance. So, do you? I promised we wouldn't get too heavy. So here's something soft and true. Joy is a person, too. You meet joy in the laughter of your niece, in a neighbor's dog who chooses you, in the way the barista draws a small heart in your foam on a hard day. If you pay attention, life keeps introducing you to joy in small human ways. Shake its hand. Say, "Hi, I've been meaning to know you better." You're allowed to be happy even while you're healing. Both can live in the same house. Maybe tonight you're thinking of someone who hurt you. Maybe you're thinking of someone who saved you. Maybe both. If a name rose up while we talked, hold it gently. Ask, "What did you come to show me?" If an answer doesn't come, that's okay. Answers have their own timing. They arrive when your hands are free to catch them. Before we close this first part, let me tell you about Cal, a quiet man who sat 2 pews behind me at church. He wore the same brown jacket every Sunday and left early, like he didn't want to bother anyone. One winter, the furnace broke in his house. He never said a word. Someone found out and showed up with 2 space heaters. Cal cried big childlike tears and said, "I always want to be the helper, not the one who needs." We all laughed softly and said, "It's your turn." He tried to pay us back in the spring by fixing a dozen little things around the building. That's how community works. We pass the light around like a candle in a storm. No one holds it forever. Everyone gets warm. If this talk found you at the right moment, if it gave you one clean breath, you can subscribe to stay close. I share these slow, real conversations often, nothing loud, nothing rushed. Just a hand on your shoulder, reminding you that you're not walking this road alone. Maybe the next story will be the one you needed for the week. Maybe you'll hear a sentence that lets you forgive or rest or try again. And if you don't subscribe, that's okay too. You're still welcome here, anytime. For now, here's our small promise to carry into tomorrow. We will trust the timing of the people who show up. We will say yes to the ones who bring peace. We will learn from the ones who bring friction. We will set soft boundaries, ask for help when we need it, and forgive when our hands get tired of holding heat. And we'll remember, maybe, just maybe, no one arrives by chance. They arrive right on time. It's okay not to understand it yet. It's okay to just feel it and nod. Breathe out. You're doing fine. Sometimes the hardest part isn't meeting someone. It's watching them walk away. You think they're a chapter that will last forever, but they turn out to be just a few beautiful pages. Maybe you've had that kind of goodbye. No fight, no explanation, just silence that stretches out like winter. It hurts, doesn't it? But maybe that's how life prunes our garden, so new things can grow. People leave when their role in our story is complete, even if our hearts don't agree with the timing. I remember once, years ago, I met a man named Eli. He was quiet, kind of awkward, always carried a notebook full of quotes he loved. We worked in the same little bookstore. Every day, he'd write one sentence on a sticky note and leave it on the counter before locking up. One of them said, "Some people walk beside you just long enough to teach your feet how to move." When he moved away for grad school, the shop felt emptier, but his note stayed taped to the cash register for years. Now, when I think of him, I smile. He wasn't meant to stay. He was meant to remind me how simple kindness can last longer than presence. Maybe you have your own Eli. Someone who showed up, changed the temperature of your world, and then left without warning. And maybe the ache you feel isn't just loss. It's gratitude in disguise. It's life whispering, "Look what you learned." We all crave permanence, don't we? We want to hold on tight to friends, to lovers, to comfort. But nothing in nature clings that way. The tide doesn't apologize for leaving the shore. The tree doesn't beg the leaf to stay. They just trust the rhythm. People, too, come and go like seasons. And maybe that's not tragedy. Maybe it's choreography. There's a kind of grace in letting go gently. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means loosening your grip enough to breathe again. When someone drifts out of your life, try whispering, "Thank you for walking with me as far as you could." That sentence alone can heal more than time. You don't know every person forever. Some are here to light one hallway, not the whole house. Now, here's something we don't talk about enough. Not everyone who leaves is gone. Some stay as quiet echoes inside us. You know that voice that says, "You can do this." When you're scared, maybe that belongs to someone who believed in you long ago. That courage isn't lost. It's borrowed light still burning. The people who truly loved us never disappear. They just change form. When I was younger, I thought closure meant final words, long talks, tidy endings. But real closure is quieter. It's the moment you stop checking if they'll call. It's when a song you used to cry to finally sounds like just a song again. It's when you can wish them well and mean it. And maybe one morning you wake up, stretch, make coffee, and realize the ache is gone. You survived the goodbye. That's how you know the lesson has settled in. Here's a small truth I've learned from the elders I've met. The older you get, the softer you become. You realize not every heartbreak needs fixing. Some just need understanding. You stop asking, "Why did this happen?" and start asking, "What did it teach me?" You learn that losing people isn't failure. It's how space is made for what's next. There was a woman named June who once told me, "Each person I've lost left me a tool." I asked her what she meant. She said, "My father left me patience. My best friend left me laughter. My husband left me courage. It stopped me cold." Maybe the ones who leave don't take something. Maybe they leave us something invisible but vital. Maybe the space they leave is shaped perfectly for our next step. Still, I know the silence that follows someone's exit can feel unbearable. Nights get longer, meals feel emptier, and your mind keeps replaying what you should have said. If you're in that season, please be gentle with yourself. Healing doesn't happen in straight lines. Some days you'll feel free. Some days you'll feel like calling them. It's okay. Healing is messy but holy work. Just keep showing up for yourself. And while we're here, let's talk about new beginnings. When someone new enters your life, even if it's just a coworker, a neighbor, or a stranger who smiles at you in a coffee shop, don't assume it's random. Every encounter carries a message, sometimes small, sometimes life-changing. The trick is to stay awake enough to notice. Maybe they're here to help you see what kindness looks like again. Maybe you're here to remind them what hope feels like. The current flows both ways. Life keeps sending us people like waves. Some to carry us forward, others to test if we've learned how to swim. But either way, we move. That's the quiet miracle of it all. You think you're standing still, but you're not. You're becoming. Through every meeting, every parting, every small act of grace. So, if you're listening right now, sitting in that hush between endings and beginnings, hear this. You are not broken. You're being rearranged. The story isn't over. It's turning the page. Let the people who left become lines in your book, not weights on your chest. Let new ones arrive without fear. You don't need to guard your heart behind walls. Just meet them with open eyes and steady breath. And maybe, as you go through your day tomorrow, notice who crosses your path. A stranger's smile, a co-worker's kindness, a text from someone you haven't heard from in months. Life is still speaking through them. Maybe it's saying, "You're not alone." If these words feel like a small exhale in your heart, you can stay close by subscribing. This channel is our quiet space to remember what matters, how to love without losing ourselves, how to let go without closing off, how to find meaning in the little crossings of life. You can hit that subscribe button. Not for me, but for the moments you'll need a gentle voice reminding you it's all going to be okay. Because really it is going to be okay. People come, people go, and through it all, you keep learning how to love better, softer, truer. Maybe that's the point. Maybe every hello and every goodbye is just life teaching us how to stay open. So, take a deep breath. Let it out slow. The people who are meant to walk with you, they'll find you again. And the ones who had to leave, maybe they already gave you what you needed. Have you ever tried to help someone and somehow made things worse? You step in because you care. You fix what you can. You give your time, your energy, maybe even your peace, and yet it backfires. Suddenly they pull away. They get defensive. Or the situation just collapses, and you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? I was only trying to help. Maybe you've been there. I have too. And what I've learned slowly, painfully, is that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is not to save them. Sometimes letting them walk through their storm is the only way they'll ever learn to stand. There was a time I couldn't understand that. I used to rush in, trying to fix, to smooth, to protect. I thought love meant jumping into someone's river and steering their boat for them. But love, real love, isn't control. It's trust. You can't carry another person's lessons on your back. You can walk beside them, maybe hold a light, but their journey is theirs to make. There's an old story I once heard from a monk in Kyoto. He said, imagine someone struggling in the mud. If you jump in too fast, both of you sink. But if you wait and reach out when they ask, you can pull them up without drowning yourself. That hit me hard. I'd spent so many years sinking with people I wanted to save, friends who didn't want change, family who needed time, not advice. I thought my help was healing, but really I was taking away their right to grow. A few years ago, my friend Laura went through a messy divorce. I wanted to fix everything for her, help with lawyers, find her a new apartment, even pick out her furniture. I thought I was being a hero. But one day she said quietly, please stop. I need to figure this out myself. At first, I was hurt. I thought she didn't appreciate me. But later, I realized she was protecting her own strength. She didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to rebuild. When I finally stepped back and just listened, she started to heal. She didn't need my solutions. She needed my silence, my patience, my faith in her. That was love, not rescue. Sometimes, helping too soon is a kind of fear. We're afraid to see someone suffer. We want to rush the pain away. But pain, as strange as it sounds, has its own wisdom. Just like a seed has to split before it grows. People often have to break a little to bloom. There's a saying I carry close. Never take someone's struggle away from them. It's the sacred ground where they meet themselves. When we interfere too quickly, we rob them of that meeting. We turn their journey into ours. And neither of us learns what we were meant to. Have you ever noticed that the people who've fallen, failed, or been through heartbreak often have the softest hearts? It's because they've met their limits and learned to listen. They've seen that pain doesn't last forever. And when they offer help, it comes with humility, not control. Maybe that's what the monk meant by letting people steer their own boat. You don't have to jump in. You just stay close, ready if they reach out. And this doesn't only apply to others. It applies to us, too. Sometimes we're the ones who need to stop waiting for someone to pull us out. Sometimes we need to stop saying, why won't anyone help me? And start whispering, maybe it's my turn to help myself. That's where self-trust begins. I used to wait for permission, to move on, to make changes, to stop hurting. Then one morning, I realized no one was coming to save me. And strangely, that realization didn't feel lonely. It felt freeing. I was allowed to rescue myself. You are too, if you've been waiting for someone to understand your pain perfectly before you start healing. Maybe this is your sign. Maybe it's time to pick up your own boat, or you're allowed to move forward, even without applause. Still, helping others is beautiful when it's right. It's not about closing your heart. It's about listening to the rhythm of life. If someone asks, if someone truly wants your hand, give it with your whole heart. But if they turn away, let them. Trust that the universe has its timing. You don't have to micromanage another soul's growth. You don't even have to understand it. You just have to love them enough to respect it. The monk in the story said, "Every person carries their own karma, like a river carries its current. When we swim against it for them, we get lost. When we let them swim, we find peace." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Helping without being asked is like throwing a pebble into calm water. You might mean well, but the ripples change everything. Let me tell you another small story. A young man once saw a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. Feeling sorry for it, he gently cut the shell to make it easier. The butterfly slipped out, but its wings never opened. It had missed the struggle it needed to build its strength. That day, the man learned what so many of us forget. The struggle is sacred. People need their struggle. We can love them through it, sit beside them, pray for them, but we can't skip it for them. So next time you want to help someone, take a breath. Ask quietly, do they want my help or just my presence? Sometimes the best help is a listening ear, a warm meal, or simply staying close without fixing anything at all. And maybe as you hear this, you realize there's someone you've been trying to fix. Someone whose pain you've been carrying like your own. If that's true, try whispering these words tonight. I release you to your own journey. I trust you to find your way. It's not giving up. It's giving space. And in that space, both of you can finally breathe again. You might be surprised when you stop pushing, people often rise on their own. And sometimes they come back stronger, grateful that you believe they could stand without your hand holding them up. So here's what I've learned, friend. Helping isn't about saving. It's about seeing. It's looking at someone's pain and saying, I know you can walk through this, and I'll be right here when you do. That's love, not the loud, dramatic kind, the quiet kind that trusts. If you're still here with me, thank you. I know these conversations can be tender, but maybe you needed this one tonight. Maybe you've been giving too much, or maybe you've been afraid to ask for help. Either way, you're human. You're learning balance. And that's what we all came here for. There's a moment, maybe late at night, maybe in the middle of an ordinary day, when a memory sneaks up on you. It's not loud, it doesn't knock. It just arrives. And suddenly, you feel that familiar sting in your chest. Someone hurt you. Maybe they lied. Maybe they left. Maybe they just disappear without explanation, leaving you holding a story that never got its ending. We all carry a few of those ghosts. I used to think forgiveness meant letting them back in, pretending the pain didn't happen. But forgiveness, real forgiveness, is quieter. It's not about saying it's fine. It's about whispering, I'm done carrying this. You see, anger is heavy. It fills your pockets, your shoulders, even the space behind your smile. It doesn't just stay where the wound began. It spreads. It turns into sleepless nights, tired mornings, sharp words at innocent people. You think you're protecting yourself by holding on, but really, you're just keeping the fire alive. There's a story from the Buddha that I never forgot. A man spat in the Buddha's face during a sermon. Everyone gasped, but the Buddha didn't flinch. He simply said, "Thank you. You have given me the chance to practice patience." Later, the man returned, ashamed, asking for forgiveness. The Buddha smiled and said, "There is nothing to forgive. The anger belonged to you, not to me." When I first heard that story, I thought, that's impossible. If someone disrespected me like that, I'd defend myself, I'd react. But as I got older, I started to understand forgiveness isn't about excusing others. It's about freeing ourselves from their grip. It's not weakness. It's strength that no longer needs to shout. I had a friend once, Mark, who carried his anger like a badge. His father had left when he was young, and even decades later, he talked about it with clenched teeth. "I'll never forgive him," he used to say. But over time, that anger didn't just burn his father's memory. It burned him. His relationships fell apart. He lost jobs. He drank too much. One day, after years of carrying it, he finally broke down and said, "I think I'm just tired of hating him." That night, he wrote a letter he never sent. He wrote, "You hurt me. You left. But I don't want to live angry anymore." And when he tore it up, he said it felt like the air got lighter. Forgiveness didn't change the past. It changed him. Sometimes that's all forgiveness is. Taking your heart back from a story that doesn't serve you anymore. You don't need the other person to apologize. You don't even need them to understand. You just need to stop letting them live rent-free in your peace. But I get it. Forgiveness is hard because part of us wants justice. We want the universe to notice the unfairness, to balance the scales. And it will, in its own way. Life has its rhythm of return. But we don't need to be the keepers of revenge. Karma doesn't need our supervision. When you release anger, you don't erase what happened. You reclaim your power. You say, "I won't let this define me." And that's not forgetting. That's remembering differently. There's a phrase I keep close. Forgiveness is the gift you give to yourself, not to them. When you forgive, you're not saying they were right. You're saying, "I'm ready to stop suffering for what they did." I remember another story, not from scriptures, but from real life. A woman named Evelyn, 68 years old, told me she finally forgave her sister after 30 years of silence. When I asked what changed, she said, "I realized I missed her laugh more than I hated her mistakes." That sentence stayed with me. Sometimes love waits beneath layers of pain, patient as sunlight behind clouds. When you forgive, it's not that the wound disappears. It just stops being the first thing you see. Evelyn said she sent a postcard that simply read, "Thinking of you, hope you're well." No long explanations, no reopening old arguments. A week later, her sister called. They talked for hours. They didn't fix everything, but they started breathing the same air again. That's what forgiveness can do. It opens a small window, even if the door is still closed. Still, let's be honest, some people you'll never speak to again. Some wounds won't get that happy ending, and that's okay too. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means wishing someone peace from a distance. You can forgive and still walk away. You can love someone and still know they're not safe for your soul. Forgiveness without boundaries isn't peace. It's self-abandonment. So forgive, yes, but also protect your light. If someone asks you to keep giving them chances that only drain you, it's okay to say, "I forgive you, but I can't keep living in the same circle." That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. You can bless someone and still close the door behind them. Here's the gentle truth. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's a practice. Some days, you'll think you've let it go, and then a song, a photo, or a smell will bring it back. You'll feel the sting, and you'll think, I thought I was over this. But that's just life checking in, asking, do you still choose peace? When it happens, breathe. Remind yourself, I already forgave this. I can let it pass again. Forgiveness is like meditation. You don't master it. You return to it over and over. And what about forgiving ourselves? That might be the hardest one. The missed chances, the words we shouldn't have said, the times we stayed too long or walked away too soon. We replay them, punishing ourselves quietly. But please remember this. You are not the same person you were when you made those choices. You know more now. You see clearer. You did what you could with the tools you had then. It's okay to lay down that guilt. You've carried it long enough. Whisper to yourself, I forgive you. I'm learning. Because that's the truth. We're all still learning. So tonight, maybe sit with this question. Who or what do you still need to forgive? A person? Yourself? Life itself? You don't have to rush it. Forgiveness doesn't come on command. It comes when your heart gets tired of carrying too much. When you're ready to make space for lighter things, laughter, peace, quiet mornings that don't ache. Let the anger fade. Let the wound breathe. You deserve that lightness. And if this talk feels like something your heart needed to hear, you can subscribe and stay close. This space is for real people with real feelings. No masks, no perfect answers. Just small reminders that it's okay to hurt, it's okay to heal, and it's okay to start again. So, take a breath. Maybe forgive one small thing tonight. And when you do, notice how the air feels different. Softer, like a window finally opening after a long winter. That's forgiveness. Quiet, invisible, powerful. The sound of your soul finally exhaling. You know what's funny? We spend our whole lives being told to be kind, generous, forgiving, and those are all beautiful things. But no one really teaches us how to stop, how to say, that's enough, how to protect our peace without feeling guilty for it. Somewhere along the way, we mixed up kindness with self-erasure. We forgot that saying no doesn't make us cruel. It keeps us whole. Maybe you know this feeling. You agree to things you don't want to do. You smile through exhaustion. You help people who never show up when it's your turn to need help. And when you finally crash, you blame yourself. You whisper, why can't I handle this? But the truth is, you were never meant to handle everything. You were meant to choose. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. Doors that open to the right people at the right time. You don't need to explain your boundaries, defend them, or make them look pretty. You just have to honor them. Because if you keep saying yes when your heart is screaming no, you're not kind. You're exhausted. And nobody gets your best when you're empty. I once met a woman named Claire who worked as a nurse for over 30 years. She was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday, stayed late when coworkers called in sick, and always had snacks for anyone who forgot their lunch. People loved her, but they also leaned on her too much. She'd smile and say, "Of course I can help." But inside, she was burning out. One day, she fainted on her way home from another 12-hour shift. When she told me the story, she said something I'll never forget. I thought I was helping everyone. Turns out, I was just teaching them that I didn't need help. That sentence stopped me cold. Because how many of us do that? How many of us pretend we're fine so others can stay comfortable? Claire eventually learned to say, I can't stay late today. I need a weekend to myself. No, I don't have time right now. And guess what? The world didn't fall apart. The hospital didn't close. People adjusted. The only thing that changed was she finally had energy to laugh again. Boundaries, in their quiet way, are a form of self-respect. You're telling the universe, this is how I expect to be treated. And the universe listens. People either rise to meet that standard or fall away. Both are answers. Sometimes setting boundaries will upset people. That's okay. The ones who truly love you will understand. The ones who don't, well, they were only comfortable when you were tired. You don't owe anyone endless access to you. You don't owe explanations for choosing rest. Rest is not laziness. It's maintenance. When I was younger, I thought being a good person meant saying yes to everything, every favor, every call, every last-minute plan. I thought if I kept showing up, people would love me more. But all that did was teach me how to disappear. Then I met an older man named Sam, a retired teacher who'd lived through more seasons than most of us could imagine. We sat on a park bench once, and he said, "You know, I used to think kindness was giving everything I had. Now I think kindness is giving what I can without losing myself in the process." That line became my compass. Because being kind to others while being cruel to yourself isn't kindness. It's a slow heartbreak. Let's talk about guilt for a moment. The guilt that shows up right after you say no. That tiny voice that says, they'll be disappointed, or you're being selfish. You know what I've learned? Guilt isn't always a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're breaking an old pattern, a pattern of overgiving, of neglecting yourself, of letting everyone else's needs come first. So when that guilt rises, smile at it. Say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm safe now." You're not responsible for how people react to your boundaries. You're only responsible for being honest about what you can and cannot give. There's a saying I love: the right people will never punish you for having limits. The wrong ones will call you cold, distant, or difficult. But you're not difficult. You're learning how to take care of yourself. If you need to rest, rest. If you need space, take it. If you need to say no without explanation, do it. You don't need permission to protect your energy. And when you do say yes, let it come from joy, not obligation. A yes from a full heart is a gift. A yes from a tired soul is a burden. Choose the gift. There's a soft truth hiding in all this. Your peace is sacred. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove you deserve rest. You don't need to fix everyone's life to justify your place in this world. You are allowed to just be. Imagine your heart as a home with windows open, sunlight pouring in. You get to decide who walks through the door and who only stays on the porch. You get to decide when it's time for quiet again. That's not selfish. That's self-care at its purest form. A few years ago, I started practicing something simple. Before agreeing to anything, I asked myself 3 questions. Do I really want to do this? Do I have the energy to do it? Will this leave me drained or fulfilled? If the answer feels heavy, I let it go. And you know what? The more I honored those answers, the more peace found its way in. You deserve that same peace. You deserve mornings where you wake up without resentment, where your body isn't tense from holding everyone else's weight. You deserve to fill your own cup first, not last, because when your cup overflows, your kindness becomes effortless again. If you're listening right now and realize that you've been giving too much, please take this as permission to stop, to breathe, to refill. The world will still spin. The people who truly love you will still love you. And you'll finally have enough of yourself left to love you, too. And if you're still learning how to draw those lines, stay here with me. You can subscribe, not for fancy advice, but for gentle reminders like this. We're building a little corner of calm here, where no is respected, rest is honored, and kindness includes yourself. Because at the end of the day, real kindness starts with this one simple truth. You are a person, not a power source. You don't have to light every room. You just have to keep your own flame alive. So tonight, before you sleep, try whispering these words. It's okay to rest. It's okay to say no. I'm still a good person. There's a kind of tired that sleep can't fix. You know that one, when your body's fine but your spirit feels wrung out, when even good things feel heavy, when conversations drain you even with people you love. That's not weakness. That's energy leaking. And most of the time, it's because you've been giving too much of yourself away without noticing. Maybe you've said yes out of guilt. Maybe you've carried someone else's pain because you didn't want to see them fall. Or maybe you've been living in noise so long that silence feels strange. If that sounds familiar, it's time to protect your energy. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally understand that your peace is not negotiable. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Your energy is like a small garden. If you don't protect it, people will trample it. Not always out of malice, but simply because they don't see where your fence ends. And if you keep letting everyone walk through, one day you'll look around and realize the flowers are gone. Only soil remains. That's what happened to me once. I was saying yes to every call, every project, every friend who needed to talk just 5 minutes. And I told myself I can handle it. But I couldn't. I started waking up with this dull ache. Not physical, more like my soul was tired of trying to please the world. One afternoon, sitting in traffic, I just started crying for no reason. That's when I realized exhaustion isn't always from doing too much. It's often from doing too much that doesn't align with your heart. So I began to guard my energy, gently, not with anger, but with awareness. I stopped apologizing for being quiet. I stopped explaining why I didn't answer messages right away. I stopped chasing people who only reached out when they needed something. It felt awkward at first, like learning to walk again. But slowly, peace started to return. Here's something that may surprise you. Protecting your energy isn't about isolation. It's about intention. You can still love deeply, help generously, and give freely, but from a grounded place, not an empty one. Imagine your day as a small cup of water. If you pour into every thirsty hand you see, you'll run out before noon. But if you pour thoughtfully into the things that matter, the people who pour back, the quiet moments that refill you, that cup never empties. So, before you say yes next time, pause and ask, does this feed me or drain me? Does this add peace or take it away? If it drains you, you're allowed to say no. Not because you're selfish, because you're wise. There's a story about an old monk who lived in the mountains. Every morning, villagers would climb up to ask for advice. One day, a young man came in tears. "Master," he said, "I give and give, but people still hurt me. I help them and they turn away. What should I do?" The monk smiled, poured tea into a cup, and didn't stop, even when overflowed. "Master," the young man shouted, "it's spilling." The monk nodded gently. "Exactly. This is your heart. When you pour without pause, even goodness becomes chaos. You cannot pour for others until you learn to stop and refill." I think about that story often, because no one teaches us how to refill. We're praised for giving, rarely for resting. But rest is sacred. Quiet is medicine. Stillness is the soil where clarity grows. Protecting your energy also means knowing who you spend it on. Some people are radiators. They warm you up just by being near. Others are drains. They leave you cold, even if they never say a cruel word. You'll know the difference by how you feel after being with them. If you walk away lighter, they're good for your soul. If you walk away heavier, maybe it's time to love them from a distance. And that's okay. Not everyone gets front row access to your spirit. Think of it this way. Your peace is a garden. Some people belong in it. Others can wave from the gate. I once knew a man named Thomas who was a definition of peace. Nothing rattled him. When everyone else rushed, he slowed down. When others shouted, he smiled. I asked him once, "How you stay so calm?" He said, "I stopped trying to win arguments that don't matter. I stopped trying to convince people to see what I see. I stopped picking up every invitation to chaos." That stuck with me. You don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. You don't have to answer every message. You don't have to explain your choices to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your energy is precious. Spend it like cash, not like confetti. Protecting your energy also means being mindful of what you consume. The news, the noise, the endless scrolling. They all nibble at your calm. Be careful what stories you let in. Not every headline deserves your heart. Not every argument needs your voice. Sometimes peace is simply closing the screen, taking a slow walk, feeling the sun on your skin, and remembering the world is still beautiful. Life is still kind. You are still allowed to smile without reason. And maybe tonight, when you sit in your chair or lie in bed, try this little ritual. Place your hand over your chest and say, "I'm safe now. I don't have to carry it all." Let your body believe it, because the truth is, you never had to carry it all in the first place. Protecting your energy will change how people see you. Some will call it distance. Some will call it coldness. But you'll know it's neither. It's self-respect wrapped in peace. The people meant for you will recognize it. They'll feel safer around you, not threatened. Because when your energy is calm, it gives others permission to slow down too. And over time, you'll notice something. The right people find you naturally when you protect your peace. You don't have to chase. You don't have to prove. You just have to keep your light steady, and they'll see it from afar. If this message resonates with you, if you've been tired for too long and craving peace that feels real, you can subscribe and stay close. This little space is where we learn to breathe again, one story at a time. Remember this as you move through your day. You are not a battery to be drained. You are a light meant to last. And protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's sacred work. So tonight, turn down the noise. Step away from the things that steal your calm. Let quiet find you again. There comes a point in everyone's life when staying starts to hurt more than leaving. You keep trying, you keep hoping, but something deep inside begins whispering it's time. You ignore for a while because leaving feels like failure. But truthfully, walking away is not failure. It's wisdom arriving quietly at your door. We often talk about how to hold on, how to fix, how to keep people close. But no one really teaches us how to release things gently, how to end a chapter without bitterness. Because leaving doesn't always mean slamming the door. Sometimes it's simply turning the handle, stepping into fresh air and saying, "Thank you for everything, but I have to go now." Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now, standing in that space between what was and what's next. If so, I want to tell you something that might sound strange. It's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to outgrow jobs, routines, even dreams that once fit you perfectly. Growth is not betrayal. Sometimes the soul needs more room. I once knew a woman named Hannah who stayed in a friendship that had long stopped feeling safe. She said, "I kept trying to fix what was broken, even after it cut my hands. When she finally walked away, she didn't do it out of anger. She did it out of peace. And that's what made the difference. She told me later, the moment I stopped fighting to be understood, I started feeling free. That's the power of walking away with grace. No drama, no revenge, no explanation longer than necessary. Just peace. You don't need to prove why you're leaving. You don't need to convince anyone to see it your way. If you've tried, if you've spoken kindly, if you've given your best, you are allowed to let go. The universe doesn't ask you to keep fixing what's already finished. There's a quiet dignity in choosing yourself. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you've learned the sacred balance between giving and losing. When I first started protecting my peace, people didn't understand. Some said, "You've changed." And they were right. I had. Change isn't betrayal. It's evolution. When you heal, you stop matching the patterns that once felt familiar. You stop chasing people who don't meet you halfway. You stop explaining your worth to those who can't see it. And yes, it can be lonely for a while. But loneliness in truth is better than company in confusion. There's an image I love. Imagine you're holding a rope, and on the other end is something you're afraid to lose. A relationship, a job, an identity. You've been holding it so long your hands bleed. But you're too scared to let go because you think pain means love or loyalty or purpose. But the real pain isn't in letting go. It's in holding on too long. When you release the rope, the first feeling is burning, then emptiness, then peace. That's how healing usually works. It hurts before it helps. Let's talk about endings, real, quiet endings. Sometimes walking away isn't dramatic. No big goodbye speech. No long text. Just silence. You stop explaining. You stop re-entering conversations that never change. You stop watering a plant that refuses to grow. And in that silence, something beautiful happens. You start hearing yourself again. Maybe that's why walking away feels so terrifying, because we mistake silence for loss. But silence is not loss. It's space. It's the sound of your soul finally breathing without permission. I want to share something personal. Years ago, I had to walk away from someone I deeply loved. Not because they were bad, but because we kept shrinking to fit each other's comfort. Every conversation ended with, "Maybe next time it'll work." But next time never came. So one afternoon, I wrote a small note that said, "Thank you for loving me the way you could. I'm letting you go so we both can grow." I never sent it, but writing it set me free. I didn't stop loving them. I just stopped waiting for them to meet me halfway. That's the difference between walking away in bitterness and walking away in grace. If you're listening now and you're on the edge of that kind of decision, I see you. I know how heavy it feels. I know how guilt creeps in, whispering that you're selfish for leaving. But please remember, choosing peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. You're not abandoning anyone. You're honoring yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop trying, to stop forcing something to fit that no longer does, to say, "This version of me deserves quiet." And here's something even softer. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring. You can still wish them well. You can still pray for their healing. But you no longer have to stand in the storm to prove it. You can love from afar. That's still love. There's a phrase I keep close to my heart. I release you with love. Say it to people, to memories, even to parts of yourself that no longer serve you. Because forgiveness without release is like opening a window but never stepping outside. Let them go. Let yourself go. Let life move. And maybe after some time, you'll realize something miraculous. Everything you lost made space for what you actually needed. The moment you stop gripping what's gone, your hands become open to receive. I've seen it happen over and over. A woman leaves a job that's draining her and finds her dream work months later. A man walks away from a toxic friendship and finally feels peace in solitude. The pattern is always the same. When you make space, life fills it with grace. So tonight, if you feel that nudge in your chest, that quiet knowing that something needs to end, trust it. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to explain. Sometimes your peace requires distance. And distance isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of wisdom. If these words find you at a crossroads, if you're trying to summon the courage to close the door, please know it's okay. You're allowed to choose light over loyalty. You're allowed to move toward calm. You can subscribe and stay here with me, if you like. This space is for people learning the quiet art of starting over. We talk about endings, beginning, forgiveness, and the kind of strength that doesn't need a shout. And if no one's told you this lately, you're doing brave work. You're not walking away from something. You're walking toward peace. So take a deep breath. Look forward. The world isn't ending. It's opening. Let's end this journey the way it began. Quietly. No noise, no rush, no trying to be wise. Just a moment to sit with yourself. Maybe you're listening while washing dishes, or lying in bed with the lights low. Wherever you are, let's take one slow breath together. In and out. Do you feel that? That little pocket of calm under your ribs? That's you. The part of you that's always been there, beneath the fear, beneath the noise. The one who's been waiting for you to stop running and just listen. This whole time, we've talked about people coming and going, about kindness, forgiveness, boundaries, endings. But here's the truth that ties it all together. Every person you meet, every story you live through, is just another way the universe is trying to bring you back to yourself. Because at the end of the day, life isn't about collecting people. It's about collecting peace. It's about learning who you become after every hello, every goodbye, every moment you choose to stay soft when life tells you to harden. There's a saying I love. When nothing is certain, anything is possible. I use to resist uncertainty. I wanted plans, guarantees, answers. But over time, I've come to see that uncertainty is the space where growth happens. When you don't know what's next, you become more present with what is. You start noticing the sunlight through your curtains. The way your heart slows down when you stop scrolling. The way silence isn't empty. It's full of truth. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the moment you stop fighting the current. When I think of stillness, I think of Mr. Ito, a gardener I met in Kyoto years ago. He was in his 80s, always moving slowly, trimming bonsai trees with the gentleness of someone who's seen 1,000 seasons. I once asked him how he learned to be so patient. He smiled and said, "Trees do not rush to grow. Why should I?" That night, I wrote his words down in my notebook. They didn't hit me right away, but later, in one of the hardest seasons of my life, they made sense. I was rushing everything: healing, success, understanding, closure. I wanted results. But life doesn't bloom under pressure. It blooms under presence. Maybe that's your season right now, the waiting one. Maybe you're healing from something that doesn't make sense yet. Maybe you're rebuilding after walking away. Maybe you're learning to protect your peace for the first time. Please let it take the time it needs. You don't have to rush your recovery. You don't have to get over it by tomorrow. Healing is slow on purpose. That's how roots grow deep. I want you to remember something simple. You're not behind. There's no finish line. You're not late to your own life. Everything that left you, everything that stayed, everything that broke, and everything that bloomed, it all had perfect timing, even if you can't see it yet. Maybe one day you'll look back and realize that every person who came into your story, even the painful ones, were quiet teachers, showing you how to come home to yourself. Sometimes people ask me, but how do I know I'm growing? And I always say, you'll know when your peace becomes more important than proving a point. When you start saying no without guilt. When silence stops feeling lonely and starts feeling like rest. When you start loving people from calm, not from fear of losing them. That's what spiritual maturity really looks like. Not perfection, but peace. I remember sitting once by the ocean after a long year. The water was calm, but the wind kept changing directions. It reminded me of life, never constant, always shifting. I watched a small wave roll toward me, stop just at my toes, then slide back into the sea. It hit me then. Maybe peace isn't something we chase. Maybe it's something we let return to us when we stop trying to control the tide. Maybe that's what forgiveness, boundaries, kindness, and letting go have all been leading us to, not control, but surrender. Let's talk about surrender softly. It's not giving up. It's giving in to life's rhythm, to your own heartbeat, to the understanding that you don't have to know everything to trust the path you're on. You've done enough searching. You've done enough fighting. Maybe it's time to let things unfold. Let the people who left keep walking. Let the ones who love you stay. Let the future arrive without you dragging it forward. The older I get, the more I realize peace isn't found in answers. It's found in acceptance. Acceptance that not everything will make sense. Acceptance that sometimes closure never comes. Acceptance that you can love people and still lose them and still be okay. So tonight, if you're listening to this with tired eyes or a restless heart, I want you to hear this. You're doing beautifully, even if you don't feel like it, even if you're still figuring things out. You've been learning the hardest lessons, how to love, how to let go, how to rest, how to begin again. And if this space has felt like a quiet friend whispering, you're not alone. You can subscribe and stay close. This is your corner of calm. No noise, no pressure. Just reminders that it's okay to slow down, to breathe, to trust that your story still has chapters waiting to be written. Before we close, I want you to try something. Place a hand over your heart. Feel it beating, steady, patient, loyal. That sound? That's proof you've made it through every goodbye, every hard night, every storm. You've survived 100 versions of yourself already. You'll survive this one too. So rest. Be gentle. Let the world spin without you for a bit. Because the truth is, you were never meant to chase peace. You were meant to become it. And maybe, just maybe, that's what every person, every lesson, and every goodbye was preparing you for all along, the quiet, unwavering strength of coming home to yourself. There's a moment after every ending, a small, quiet pause, where everything feels both empty and new. You wake up, and the world looks familiar, yet somehow different. The coffee tastes the same, but the silence around it feels louder. That's the space between what was and what will be, the in-between, where healing begins. Most people fear that space. We rush to fill it, with work, with noise, with someone new, anything to avoid the ache of starting over. But here's something I've learned through every heartbreak, every loss, every season change. Beginnings are disguised as endings. What you think is over is often just a doorway opening quietly, waiting for you to walk through. So, if you recently lost something, a relationship, a dream, a version of yourself, maybe don't rush to rebuild. Maybe just sit in the quiet a little longer, because in that quiet, You'll hear something sacred, your own voice again. A few years ago, I met a man named Arthur at a retreat in Oregon. He was in his 70s, kind-eyed, with a laugh that sounded like it had survived 100 storms. During one evening circle, someone asked him how he managed to stay hopeful after losing his wife of 40 years. He smiled softly and said, "I made peace with mornings. At first, they hurt. The bed felt too big, the coffee pot too loud. But every morning, I told myself, just begin again. Not perfectly, not bravely, just begin." Those 3 words changed me. Just begin again. Arthur wasn't trying to rebuild his old life. He wasn't pretending to move on quickly. He was simply allowing life to keep flowing through him, one sunrise at a time. And isn't that what we all need to learn? How to keep showing up, even with a tender heart. Beginning again doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying your lessons forward gently. It means saying, I learned what I needed, and now I'm ready for the next chapter. It's like spring after a long winter. The snow doesn't melt overnight. It softens slowly. The ground wakes up little by little. And before you know it, something green appears, small, fragile, but alive. That's what healing looks like. It doesn't roar. It whispers. So if you're rebuilding your peace right now, take your time. There's no timeline for renewal. The only thing you need to do is stay open. Because when you stay open, even your brokenness becomes fertile ground for something new. There's a beautiful Buddhist saying, no mud, no lotus. The flower that symbolizes enlightenment, the lotus, grows only in muddy water. Without the mud, there's no bloom. That's not just poetry. It's truth. Your pain, your failures, your mistakes, they are not ruins. They are soil, the very ground that will grow your wisdom. When I first heard that, I remember sitting for a long time, thinking about how many times I cursed the mud in my own life, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the plans that fell apart. I wanted the light, but not the labor, the bloom, but not the dirt. But over time, I realized you can't skip the mud. The mud is where the roots are made. So maybe this is your mud season. Maybe you don't see the flower yet. That's okay. Keep tending to your garden anyway. Keep watering your soul with patience, kindness, and rest. Because one day, when you least expect it, you'll look around and see beauty growing from places you once thought were barren. There's something else that happens when you start again. You see life differently. Little things begin to matter again. The morning light through the window, the laughter of strangers, the way music feels like a friend. That's how you know your spirit is healing. When ordinary things start to feel holy again. And when that happens, don't question it. Don't say it's too soon. Let joy back in. Let yourself smile even if you're not fully okay yet. Healing and happiness can coexist. You don't have to be completely healed to begin again. You just have to be willing. A listener once wrote to me and said, I feel like I've lost everything that made me me. I told him gently, maybe you haven't lost yourself. Maybe you're shedding the parts that were never really you. Because sometimes beginning again isn't about adding things back. It's about stripping away everything false until only truth remains. When you start again, start smaller. Wake up, make your bed, take a walk, breathe deeply, forgive yourself for not knowing better before. Small acts done with calm become sacred rituals. They build a foundation for your next version, one that moves slower, feels deeper, and loves wiser. And here's the most beautiful part. When you finally begin again, you realize that life never truly stopped loving you. It was always waiting for you to catch your breath, to look up, to see that even the endings were written with compassion. You start to understand that maybe you didn't fall apart. Maybe you were just breaking open, making space for the light to come in. So wherever you are right now, if your world feels small or broken or quiet, I promise it's not the end. It's the pause before the next chapter. You're just between seasons, and that's where the magic begins. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking this path with me. You're not alone here. This channel isn't just a voice in the dark. It's a home for anyone learning to breathe again, to trust again, to start again. So, before you go, take one more deep breath. Feel it. That's life, still moving through you. Proof that it's not over. Proof that you can rebuild. One heartbeat, one morning, one choice at a time. And as you step into your next day, carry this truth gently in your chest. You are allowed to start over as many times as you need. Because beginnings aren't something life gives you. They're something you choose. And maybe, just maybe, this very moment, right here, right now, is your chance to begin again. Cha. Every story eventually reaches a quiet place. Not an ending, but a resting point. And maybe that's where you are now. You've listened, you've reflected, you walked through shadows and light with me. So take a slow breath, because this last part is not about letting go anymore. It's about what remains, the light you leave behind. When you've lived long enough, you start to see that life isn't measured by how much you've achieved, but by how much love you've shared. How many hearts you've touched simply by being yourself. Maybe you'll never know the full impact of your kindness, but someone, somewhere, is breathing easier because of you. That's the quiet legacy we all leave, the unseen ripples that move through the world long after we've gone. I remember meeting an old woman named Grace during a train ride years ago. She was small, wrapped in a blue shawl, her eyes bright with the kind of peace you can't fake. We talked about ordinary things, the weather, the coffee, the books she loved. Then, right before getting off, she said something I'll never forget. You know, she told me, we're all just visitors here. We don't own the people we meet. We only get to love them for a while. And if we're lucky, we leave them a little softer than we found them. I watched her walk away, the sun catching the silver in her hair, and I thought, that's the kind of person I want to be. Someone who leaves softness behind. It's easy to think our value lies in grand gestures, in success, in recognition, in perfection. But the truth is, the most powerful things we do are often invisible. The friend you comforted without saying a word. The stranger you smiled at on a hard day. The small forgiveness no one knew about. Those moments are light, quiet, ordinary light, and they linger. Every soul we meet carries some of our light forward, even if we never see them again. That's why it's so important to live gently, to speak kindly, to forgive freely, because every act of grace adds something eternal to the world. When I was younger, I used to think happiness was something I had to chase. Like if I worked harder, loved better, gave more, I'd finally feel complete. But I've learned that happiness isn't a destination. It's a reflection. It's the glow that appears when your inner world is at peace. And peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you've loved deeply, you've tried sincerely, and you've walked your path with integrity. That's the real victory. To stay kind in a world that sometimes forgets how. Here's something to think about. One day, someone will tell a story about you. Maybe it'll be a small one. She always remembered my birthday. Or he never raised his voice even when he was angry. Those are the stories that matter. Not your job title. Not your possessions. Just how you made people feel. So ask yourself, what kind of light do you want to leave behind? Maybe it's calm. Maybe it's laughter. Maybe it's the courage to keep going when everything feels uncertain. Whatever it is, keep giving it away. The more light you share, the more you have. There's a Zen proverb that says, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened. That's how kindness works. That's how love works. It multiplies quietly. You might think your small efforts don't matter. The extra patience with a loved one, the encouraging word to a stranger, the silent prayer for someone you miss. But they do, because every bit of light you offer becomes part of someone else's dawn. And maybe that's why people come into our lives, not by chance, but to exchange light. Sometimes they bring it to us when we've lost our own. Other times, we're the ones meant to pass it on. The meeting doesn't have to last forever for it to matter. Even a brief encounter can change the direction of someone's life. Maybe you've been someone's light without realizing it. Maybe you already are. As I've grown older, I've learned that the best measure of life isn't how much we hold on to. It's how gently we release. The older monk in those Zen stories understood that truth. They taught not through words, but through presence, through stillness, through peace that spoke louder than any sermon. And perhaps the greatest act of wisdom is learning to shine quietly, without needing to prove, without needing to be seen. So tonight, as this story closes, I want you to think about this. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to be anyone else. You don't even need to have it all figured out. Just be light, soft, steady, real, and the people who are meant for your path will see you. Not because you're trying to shine, but because peace has a glow of its own. If this message has touched something in you, if it's made you breathe a little slower, feel a little lighter, then stay. Subscribe, not out of habit, but out of connection. Because this isn't just a channel. It's a quiet corner for people like you. People who are learning that softness is strength, that letting go is power, that peace is possible. Let's keep walking together, through the noise, through the endings, through the beginnings, always toward the light. And when you leave this video, carry this truth with you like a small lantern. You don't meet anyone by accident. Every soul that crosses your path is part of your unfolding. And one day, when someone remembers you, may they whisper, she left warmth wherever she went. He made people believe in kindness again. That's the kind of light the world needs. That's the kind of light you already are. So go shine quietly. And remember, even when you can't see it, your light is still reaching someone. Right now, somewhere, and that's enough.